Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Tuesday's study of sacred literature for us to imbibe and apply.
Okay.
I know what you're thinking. Where did you get this big bird sweatshirt that I'm wearing? So Kastuba called it a big bird sweatshirt. It's my daughter's all-girl school.
Right.
Miss Halls, who was the crosstown rivals with Mara's all-girls school, which was Emma Willard.
Yep.
Were they the crosstown arch enemies?
Bitter rivalry.
Bitter rivals.
No.
Matter of fact, Mara gets a little upset just when she sees the... I got some interesting information. Remember I said I was scared of ghosts, but not of zombies? I get this message from Nityananda Granger.
Beware of zombies.
No, check this out. And you might have known this. It slipped my mind. A Vetala is a Sanskrit word in Hindu mythology, usually defined as a knowledgeable paranormal entity said to be dwelling in charnel grounds. You know what charnel grounds are?
No. Burial
You ever heard that word, Mara?
Charnel?
Charnel grounds, it's an above ground site for the putrefaction of bodies, generally human. With formerly living tissues, it's left to decompose. Okay. The Vitala is comparable to a vampire of Western mythology. Reanimated corpses are used as vehicles by the spirits for movement.
Where are we going?
The corpse no longer decays while it is inhibited by a Vitala. A Vitala may possess and also leave a dead body at will. In Hindu folklore, the Vitala is an evil spirit who haunts the cemeteries and takes demonic possession of corpses. They make their displeasure known by troubling humans. They can drive people mad, kill children, and cause miscarriages, but also guard villages. They are hostile spirits, dead, trapped in a twilight zone between life and afterlife.
Thank you.
It's all real, man.
Important
That's Wikipedia.
information.
It's gotta be real.
I will keep that in mind. As I pass from town to town, I'll be sure that one of them is not guarding it.
What if animals can have them also?
Okay. That was your
That's where we
nugget
left off
wisdom
yesterday.
today.
No, that's not my nugget wisdom. That's
Okay,
just
well,
an interesting side note. I do have some nugget wisdom I'd like to share.
Okay. Let's
From
hear that.
my one of my favorite stories.
Oh.
Mara's heard this a lot, but I'll tell the abbreviated version. You know, it's that time in the Mahabharata when it's about to get set off. There's a war happening. And like any war, even the modern wars of today, you find your allies and you find your enemies. And you go petition neighboring kingdoms, hey, join our ranks. So we got to understand the situation at the time. Right before the battle of Mahabharata, the Kurus were this massive empire. And the Pandavas, Arjuna and his brothers, got pushed out of the empire. And now they have to stick up for themselves. They've tried again and again not to have a war with their cousins, but it's coming to this point. It's the only option. So they're divvying up, or they're petitioning various kingdoms. Now, Krishna, of course, has a very little kingdom in Dwarka. In one sense, their kingdom is under the Kuru dynasty. But he still has a big army, and Krishna's a prince. So very swiftly, Duryodhana, the eldest and the lead villain of the Kurus, gets on his horse and chariot, and with the speed of the mind, goes to Dwarka to petition Krishna. Of course, Yudhisthira on the other side also goes to petition Krishna. And so
no, it was Arjuna, wasn't it?
Arjuna goes to petition Krishna. So they finally get to Duryodhana gets there first, and he, is banging on the door. Hey, I'm here to see Lord Krishna. It's very important. And so the gatekeeper says, "Oh, we're very honored to have you. You are the crown prince, the Yuvaraj. You'll be next in line for the emperor's throne. We're honored to have you. But Lord Krishna is sleeping right now." And he says, "This is very important." And he barges into Krishna's kingdom and finds, where's Krishna's quarters? I need to speak to Krishna immediately. And he goes upstairs to find Krishna. Now, in the meantime, Yudhisthira arrives. Now, to Yudhisthira, Arjuna arrives. When Arjuna arrives, he is so overwhelmed by the love of Krishna. He's thinking, Krishna walks here. This is where I see from footprints. Maybe those are Krishna's footprints. And he gets off that chariot and he starts to roll in the dust. Even though he's dressed very beautifully, he starts to roll in the dust thinking, my Lord Krishna has walked here. And he pays his respect to the very ground that Krishna walks on. And he goes up to that gatekeeper and he says, I'm here to see the honorable Lord Krishna. Is he here? I'd be honored to speak with him. I am Arjuna, the Pandava. He says, well, the Lord is sleeping right now, but Prince Duryodhana has already come, so please come in. I'm sure he would love to see you. So in the meantime, here is Duryodhana trying to shake and wake Krishna up. Oh, I lost my mic. Hold on.
Oh, it's getting so exciting right now.
I left you on the edge of your seat. Oh, Krishna. There we go. I'm back.
Nope, we can't hear you, Robo.
No?
Now we can. Yeah.
All right, good. So, where was I at?
Duryodhana is sitting real.
So
trying to wake up.
close to the bedside. Yeah. And shaking. Krishna, wake up! It's Duryodhana. I've got to speak to you. It's important. Now, Arjuna comes in. He sees beautiful Krishna laying on this beautiful bed. He walks into the room. He bows down. He approaches Krishna at his feet. Yudhisthira shaking him by the shoulders.
Not Yudhisthira, that's Duryodhana.
Duryodhana's shake. Thank you for clarifying. I would have made an offense there. Duryodhana's shaking by the shoulders, and Arjuna is massaging the feet of Krishna. And so Krishna's in a very weird situation. He's getting shaken on one side. He's getting a foot massage on the other side. And finally, he just goes, what's going on? And he opens his eyes and he sees Duryodhana standing right above him. And he looks down at his feet and he sees Arjuna smiling, massaging those feet. And Duryodhana very quickly interrupts. He says, Krishna, I'm here to ask you an important question. And I just want you to know I was here first. Yeah, of course. You were here first. What could I do for you? Arjuna, why are you here? He goes, I too, my lord, am here to ask you a very, very important question. He says, well, I love you both, but Duryodhana was here first. What is your question? Okay, here's the question. A great war is about to happen. And, we're picking up sides right now. And Krishna, how gracious and kind we've been to your very little kingdom. We've always taken good care of you, Krishna. And we expect when the war comes, you'll do the right thing and side with the Kuru dynasty. And then he looked at Arjuna and he said, Arjuna, is this also why you are here? And Arjuna says, "My lord, I am so honored to see you, but yes, this is also why I am here." Krishna, being very impartial, said, "Well, I love you both, but Duryodhana was here first. Now, let me just share this with you. I have a very, very big army. Very big army. It's got infantry, people who ride elephants, these guys with javelins, massive chariot riders. I've got a very big army. And you can have my army, Duryodhana, because you were here first. You can have my entire army, or you could have me. But if you choose me, I'm not going to fight. Which one do you
He
want?"
wasn't going to fight either way, right? Like, I'm not fighting. You have your choice.
Yeah, he says,
Either
"I'm not
my
going to
army or
fight,
me."
but you can
Yeah.
choose me. These is going to be your choices." And Duryodhana looked at me and said, "Wait a second. I can have your army, or I can have you, and you're not going to fight? What is this, a trick question?" He says, "No, that's it." He said, what do you want?" He goes, "I'll take your army." And Krishna looked at Arjuna. He said, Arjuna, I'm so sorry. You get me, and I'm not going to even fight." But Arjuna smiled. He wasn't despondent. He smiled. He said, "Oh, my lord, if you are on my side, how can I lose?" So this is the idea that there's sometimes things that make material sense. They make so much perfect sense, but they don't make spiritual sense. Sometimes in our bhakti, in our practice, we are asked to pick Krishna over Krishna's army. Pick truth over illusion. Pick what is right over what seems to be the perfect situation. And truthfully, day after day, we get offered these options. Do I want God? Do I want truth? Do I want love? Or do I want what appears perfect on the outside, maybe even perfect on paper? Krishna asks us that on a regular basis. I meet all these people all the time in these midlife crises. Like, what am I doing with my life? I've done everything. I've climbed a ladder of success. And when it gets to the top of that ladder, I realize I don't want to even be up here. And I've wasted time and hours and energy and resources. What do I truly want? So I think in our bhakti culture, it asks us to sort of really examine what is that key that fits in the keyhole. Out of the many thousands of keys on my keychain, what is that key that goes in the keyhole? What am I here to do in this life? Or did I just get swept up into a world, and now I've become very busy, and I don't even know why I'm busy anymore. I'm just busy doing nothing. Choose Krishna. Krishna's going to come to you today. If you're hearing this today, Krishna's going to come to you today, and he's going to say, "What do you want?" I say this because Krishna offers this many times a day, but we just don't notice it. But it's, what do you want? Do you want Krishna or Krishna's army? What do you think about that story, Kastuba?
We can talk about spirituality all we want, and kind of like identify as like a spiritual kind of person or something like that. But eventually it gets put to the test, right? Like,
eventually we get put to the task. That's exactly it.
Yeah, and so you have to make a choice. Like, where does your faith really lie, and are you willing to do something that materially doesn't add up, right? Like, are you willing to? People impress me that are like that. That can. It's we can call it dharmic, if you want, but like, they'll do the right thing even if it doesn't add up materially because they know that it's right. And so we should expect that those tests are going to come, and try to like this. Hearing this story, it helps you kind of recognize, oh, this is one of those situations where I have the choice between the Krishna or the army right now. This is it. So what am I going to do? And so so those stories help kind of like help us help inform our life, so that when we come to those stages, we can do it. And people that do it, they get they get enlivened, they get their faith strengthens as they go through it.
It's a little bit of a cracking of the shell, and everybody gets it in a different way. When in India, to wear a dhoti, a robe, is quite normal. People wear them. It's like a traditional outfit. But I remember when I got back from India and I visited the New York Temple on the very first day. I woke up, I put my robe on, and I remember Romapad Swami asking me to run an errand in Brooklyn, and I was paralyzed. I just like I was wearing like a big orange roby diaper, and I was like, I couldn't move. And he goes, "What's the matter?" I was like, I just want you to run down the street. And I was like, and he goes, "Oh, I get it. You've never been outside in a dhoti, have you?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." As stupid as that sounds, it was part of like my ego of a New Yorker walking around in a dhoti in New York. In India, I didn't mind because everybody had. So it just starts to crack the ego a little bit, and it happens every day. And it's a type of surrender. Even waking up for the show is a type of surrender. And you might have a roommate or a spouse, or they'll be like, "What are you doing? Come on." And you're like, I got to do this. This is my thing. You ever get one of those, Mira? Everybody gets them. What was yours?
What are you asking her to share?
I wanted to ask her, like,
share
ever have one of those moments where you just sort of like, no.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I'll think about it.
How did you tell Papa Tony that you're like into Krishna? How did you drop that bomb on him?
Slowly.
Slowly?
Yeah.
Little...
Yeah.
He's smiling over
like, yeah.
Well, you've done a good job because he's on the show every morning now.
Exactly.
You have a way with words. All right. So anyway, that's one. I did that little story because it's sort of like one of our themes with where we're going today with who are we and why are we here? Why are we here anyway? If we don't answer this question, we don't even know what to do in this world. We'll just fill up our time with busyness. Kastub, shall we jump in?
Let's do it.
Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Agyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual masters who have opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the ointment of knowledge. All right, Kasuba, tell us where we are. Tell us who we are and why we're here.
I'm not going to set out to do that. I'm going to just enter a little bit more humbly and mention that we are in the 6th chapter of the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're going to kind of like, in this chapter, because it is a bit technical, we're going to try to move a little bit fast and summarize some sections. And so but still, this is related to some of the stuff that we've been reading lately, but I find this so fascinating. What we're going to read about today is Maitreya is going to describe the creation of the senses and the devas, the gods, each individual god that is responsible for those senses.
Mm.
So the idea is that when we move through this world, it's almost like, it's just kind of like, again, someone's creating a big video game that we're stepping into, right?
Mm.
So the video game is going to need to have visuals. Someone needs to take responsibility for that. The video game is going to need to have sounds. Someone's going to need to take responsibility for that. It's like that, right? So all that we're, this spacesuit that we're moving through this video game of this universe in, it's equipped with senses. And what this is describing is that there's someone, it doesn't just happen on its own. The responsibility for us to be able to see is resting on a person who's going to see after that. So we're given senses. But not only that, then like the different levels of the video game. Like, you know how they have those, right? At least when I played video games when I was a kid, they had like, you go to the first level and then the second
Yeah,
level.
like
the third level.
Donkey Kong.
Okay, I like Donkey Kong. Or Galaga or whatever it was called.
Galaga. Those are the only two games I've ever played, I think.
No, the one that I
Donkey
always
Kong
played
and Galaga.
on the pizza place on Avenue A in St. Mark's, there was that one where you're driving the car, you know, pole position. That was my game.
Can we get back to
Sorry,
vampires and
yeah,
you've really gone off the course. We were like right on vampires. You took it to video games. Come on, Kastuba.
So anyway, so there's different levels, and so this is what we're going to hear about. We're going to hear about the senses and the devas that govern the senses.
It's interesting, huh? Devas, which are demigods, govern the senses.
Govern the senses. Huh? Then the second thing that we're going to hear about is the different 3 planetary systems within the universe. There's 3 different levels that we can be playing on. Okay.
You know, we gotta get these There's 2 good astrologers. I really want to get on the show.
No, Robbie, you're going off.
This is why this is in astrology why they do these pujas to demigods, because they're in control of our. We actually think we're in control, but there's so many higher beings that have to do with our success and our failure and our strengths and our weaknesses. And so the idea is you worship these demigods to get some strength in the material world or good fortune in the material world.
Some people do, yeah. But the Bhakti yogis are not interested in that. Yeah.
We're jumping over that. We're going right to the boss, the sweet baby, boss baby.
Okay. So again, we're going to hear about how the senses and the devas that govern those senses, you know, so that we can move through this video game and be able to perceive it and experience it. Then we're also going to hear about the 3 different levels of the video game. The 3 different planetary systems are created. And then we hear about, like, you know how you have an avatar when you enter into one of these games?
Yeah.
Right? You're given one. So there's 4 different categories of avatars. And each one has its own strengths and weaknesses. And so those are called the Varnas, the different occupations. But the idea is like there's 4 different basic psychologies. And so then that's also like part of the game. So all the game is being all set up. That's what's happening in this chapter. Okay.
All right.
So
hit it.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to just kind of summarize some of these texts. Where did we end up yesterday? You remember, Mara? I think we ended up with text 7. And
text 7.
Text 7. Okay. And I'm picking up these are texts 11 through 26. These are of chapter 6 of the 3rd canto that are describing all the different devas and the different senses that they govern. So we hear that the fire god, Agni, is he manifests in the mouth, and he's responsible for the voice, which is considered a sense, actually. And you know, there's the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, which we call senses. And then in the yogic or Vedic paradigm, they also call like the voice, the ability to move, to grip, you know, these different things are also considered senses. So Agni is responsible for the voice, the fire god. Varuna, the god of the waters, the god of the ocean, is responsible for the tongue and the ability to taste. Then there's the nose. Any idea who's got the nose, Rogo?
Kartikeya.
No, the Ashvini Kumars.
I had 33 million to choose from. I just went for Kartikeya.
the Ashvini Kumars. Eyesight. How about this one? Eyesight. I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Eyesight. Think about it.
I have no idea whatsoever.
You can't see without the...
Ganesh?
Without the sun. Surya.
Okay, Surya.
Right. And then it says Anila, the wind god, which I don't know if that's another name for Vayu, but that's for the skin, for the ability to you know, the tactile sense. And then there's I believe it's a series of gods. It says Dik Devata for hearing. And then the trees personified for the hair on the skin for that tactile sense.
What?
Yep. And then then there's also the ability to procreate, you know, the genitals, and that's governed by Prajapati.
Which
Mitra.
Prajapati? A particular Prajapati? I thought
says,
Prajapati was just a position.
Well, I think this is like the
Prajapati
original Prajapati or something like that. You know?
Okay. Prajapati means like a progenitor.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's Mitra, And I mean, it may be that the different Prajapatis, they hand it off, right? They hand the baton off.
Right. To an assistant.
Well, yeah, to the next one. Then Mitra for the organ of evacuation. Then Indra for the hands, the ability to perform, to grip and things like that. And then there's another god named Vishnu, but it's not like the original Vishnu. It's like a
Not our
deity.
Vishnu.
Not our Vishnu, but or also called Upendra, and that's for the legs or the feet and the ability to move around. Then Brahma for intelligence and understanding, and then the moon god for mental activity. And we all know there's a connection between the moon and
The moon and the mind, right?
Yeah. And then Rudra or Shiva for the ego. And so you add all these up, and you have all your senses, you have your intelligence, the manas, the mind, the ego. That's all the package that you need. That's your space suit to move around the world, and there's a deva responsible for all of them, right? And we're really not able to move or to see or to do any of these things unless someone's turning on the lights. Someone's
If you
giving us that
really
ability.
get into that theory that you're putting out, that the Vedas are putting out, that we're actually in an avatar right now, it's
Yeah.
like a whole different. It's a
Yeah.
whole different ball game.
Like you're an avatar in a very bright yellow costume right now.
Yeah,
Right.
bright yellow,
Right.
crosstown rival costume.
but yeah,
It puts the yoga system in perspective too, right? Like we think about the yoga. I'm doing yoga for me. The yoga is just for your app. The physical yoga practice is just for the avatar. And the pranayama is just to help you separate yourself from the avatar. And the mantras are to connect you to the inner self, or at least the transcendental mantras that are to connect you to your inner self that's driving around in this avatar. So you can understand who you are beneath the avatar. This whole thing is actually, it's such a paradigm shifting reality if you really dive into it.
that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to shift the paradigm. It's meant to shift our identity from the body to the soul, to the self. And that's called transcendental knowledge, right? That I want my focus not to be on the temporary, but on that which transcends time. Transcendental knowledge. So I am this spirit that's moving around, taking on, just like, you play one video game and then they also have these, like kids used to play those games. I imagine they still do, but there's a game where Dungeons and Dragons where you kind of create another world. Right?
I was after that. I
You were-
came after Dungeons
came
and
after
Dragons.
that?
That was Mara's generation, I think.
Was it? Maybe, but
D&D.
but isn't that it like that, Mara? Is that what they do?
I think so. I've never played it, but yeah.
But they create I think someone like one kid will like create like a whole virtual world, and they'll create like different rooms like in the dungeon or something like that, and there's different experiences that go on in those places. And then you get like an avatar, right? And that avatar has like certain powers or certain potencies or certain weapons or abilities like that. True? Something like that?
That true, Mara?
Everybody's looking at me
I
like, I
think
don't
I
know.
was
so.
looking at Mara
yeah.
like the authority on Dungeons and Dragons.
But the point is, so you're not that character, and even that character may die, right? Like get killed by a dragon, I suppose. So they're not.
We have some Dungeons and Dragon people on the message board. They're all like,
Every-
yeah, go stupid.
Yes, he's got it. He's got it. Right. So then you take on another avatar, and then you can go back in there and play around some more, right? So it's like that. We're all given a body. It's got different senses. Occasionally, someone gets a body that doesn't get one of those senses, or that loses one of those senses, right? We might become blind or
Right.
deaf, or lose some ability to walk, or whatever it may be. So we're moving through the world. Saying just try to see this. Just try to understand it. That not only are you dependent on other beings, that there's a whole network of people that are kind of giving you the ability to do the things that you do in this world. But even the package that you're in that does it is just a temporary package. Don't identify with it. You're beyond that.
It's almost like the pure devotees, the liberated souls, are like the mothers tapping you on the shoulder saying, stop playing the video game. Stop.
Yes.
It's time to stop
Wake
playing the
up.
video game. Put the video game down. Come and eat dinner with the rest of us. The pure devotees, the bodhisattvas, the liberated souls, whatever you want to call them, are like sort of shaking us. Hey, there's another world. You want to escape the pain? You're right. You're in the video game. You're getting like, in Galaga, the shooting down at you, or you don't have to go through this pain. When you're playing Galaga, you're you're screaming at the machine. Oh, you got me, like that. You don't have to
Right.
go through this pain. There's a whole world of bliss right back here. You just step away from it. Got dinner prepared for you. Everything's wonderful. Instead, I'm going to play this. I'm getting shot. I'm getting attacked.
Yeah.
What's that other one? What's that other horrible video game?
Stealing the cars.
Yeah,
Grand Theft
stealing
Auto.
the car. Grand Theft Auto. There's that. You're living that. We're living Grand Theft Auto, man. Just put down the joystick and come on. Paradise is right behind you. No, I gotta play, and I'm attached.
That's just shows. I like Grand Theft Auto is just showing how degraded the game gets.
You know that I was offered
On your music to be played.
$5,000 to be on Grand Theft Auto.
You turned it down. You see this
turned
right
it
there.
down.
See what that is right there, Ragnar? That's the Arjuna Duryodhana. Are you going to choose Krishna or Krishna's army moment?
It was a
Right?
tough choice. I
You
was
see?
broke at the time.
Well, that makes it even more real, right? But did Paramananda have a say in this?
I think it was a song that I wrote, so I don't think Parmananda had a say in it.
Okay, you're not
I
like
don't
one
even
of
know if
those
he knows the
bands that,
story.
like, just-
Sorry about that, Parmananda. He's like, what?
I wrote that song. Where's that 5,000?
Parmananda definitely would have said, I will not be on Grand Theft Auto. I know him. He would have chose Krishna, not Krishna's army.
Okay. So yeah, it's like wake up, get out of the game, and the same kind of whether we call it a virtual reality or a video game or Dungeons and Dragons, or whatever, the spiritual literature is full of these kind of things. Even songs like, for instance, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote that song, Jeev Jago, right? Just like you're saying right now, right?
Wake up, sleeping souls, right?
Wake up,
Jeev Jago.
Yeah.
It's truthfully, you can't get better than this analogy. Because if you see kids nowadays, gamer kids, they're just in their tablet. And to get them off that is like they're like fixated in there. And adults too, not just kids. And as a parent, you're like, please put it down. And they're living this vicarious, and generally it's a lot of pain with a quick dopamine dump of
Raghunath, okay, we know what you're doing right now. You're performing for Uddhava Sandesh right now. You're just teeing him up, right? To do the next
Uddhava Sandesh for our sounds of wisdom of the sages.
bizarre
But
sounds. What does he call it?
Ecstatic noises.
Ecstatic noises.
Ecstatic
That's what it's
noises.
called, yeah.
But walking away from the game.
Yeah.
It's actually beautiful.
Coming back into the real world.
Yeah.
So we've heard now about texts 11 through 26. So 15 verses about how the senses are put together in the video game when you enter it, and then the next 3 verses describe the different planetary systems. And just super briefly, it says that there are the higher planets, the middle planets, and the lower planets. And you get, people in the sattva guna, in the mode of goodness, in the higher planets, and in the middle planets, in the rajaguna, and the tamaguna, in the lower planets, the darker regions, right? So you have 3 different levels of video game to play on. People that read the Vedas and that interpret it materialistically, they aim for those higher planets, right? Like, I want to rise to the higher levels of the game.
They're just studying the game.
Mm-hmm.
They're not studying how to get out of the game. Is that
Right,
it?
they
They're
wanna-
trying to
they
learn how
wanna-
to get
they
extra
wanna play the
ships
game
or
better.
extra weapons.
Yeah.
So they play the game better.
Bigger prizes.
Bigger prizes.
Yeah.
But the prizes are still temporary. And this is the beautiful thing about the Bhagavad Gita, and that's why the Bhagavad Gita probably is the most commented on book throughout ancient India. Is it actually in the very opening chapters just say all this Vedic stuff, it's not that important actually,
Right.
because
Facing,
it's all temporary.
Yeah.
All the fruits of your work are all temporary and miserable because you can't keep them. So what's the point of going to these higher planets?
Don't become bewildered by it.
You just you get lost. From the highest planet to the lowest planet are all temporary, where birth and death takes place. But those who worship me, they come to my supreme planet. It's beyond this game. You actually step away from the tablet.
There you go. So we hear about the equipment, the senses in the video game. We hear about the 3 different levels. And then text 30 through 33 describes something interesting. The Varnas. Okay.
Varnas. This is commonly known in modern world as the caste system. But here it is, like the Vedas are teaching it. So what's up, Kastuba? How is the caste system screwed up?
It's just
And yet it's taught in the Bhagavatam.
It's
Tell
just
us, enlighten us, inform
well, I'll
us.
share what I can. It's what these ancient yogic texts recognized was, hey, there's 4 different kind of psychologies that people you can generally, everyone's an individual for sure, but you can generalize and recognize there's certain personality types or certain psychologies. 4 different categories of psychology, and each one comes with their own strengths and weaknesses. So, like, if we extend the video game analogy, then we say, like, you have 4 different categories of avatar to choose from, and each one is going to have certain strengths and certain weaknesses, right? That's how I look at it. So why don't we read these verses and then discuss it a bit more? Okay.
Sure.
So, O chief of the Kuru dynasty, I guess that refers to Vidura.
What number are you on here, sir?
30.
Okay.
It says the Vedic wisdom became manifest from the mouth of this universal form that we've been speaking of. Those who are inclined to this Vedic knowledge are called Brahmanas, and they are the natural teachers and spiritual masters of all orders of society. Thereafter, the power of protection was granted from the arms of the gigantic Virat form, and in relation to such power, the Kshatriyas also came into existence by following the Kshatriya principle of protecting society from the disturbances of thieves and miscreants.
I love that word, miscreant.
Okay.
Kostu, let me jump in here.
All right.
Sometimes people ask, well, who gets to become the Brahmins, huh? People are very, skeptical. I get it. You're creating a hierarchy here. Well, who gets to choose who is at the top of the hierarchy?
Okay, so let's hold that question. Let's hear about all 4 first, and let's come back to your
right.
question. Is that right? Okay. So we've heard about the Brahmanas, that there are people that are inclined to Vedic knowledge and are natural teachers and spiritual guides. And then we've heard about the Kshatriyas. These are the warriors. These are people who their contribution, their strength is actually like power, like physical power, the power to fight. And their role is as protectors. And then the third one, the means of livelihood of all persons, namely the production of grains and their distribution to the prajas, to the people in general, was generated from the thighs of the Lord's gigantic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such execution are called Vaishyas. Okay, so then there's the business people, right? People that really like what we call nowadays the job producers.
Entrepreneurs.
You could say entrepreneurs, job producers, people that employ others, right? That they're not employed themselves, they employ others. And then 33, thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the personality of Godhead. This is all metaphorical in this sense, for the sake of perfecting the function of Dharma. Situated on the legs are the Shudras who satisfy the Lord by service. So these are the 4 categories. We have what's called Brahmanas. These were those that were inclined to knowledge. They live simple lives. They live off charity. They're unemployed. They live very simply. But they're teachers, and hopefully, uncorruptible, simple living teachers. Then there are the warriors, the Kshatriyas. They have, they're powerful, physically dynamic, fearless, and they're granted the role of protectors. Then you have business people that are going to make money. They're granted the role of, the producers in society and the employers in society. And then you have everyone else, which is the vast majority, actually, right? Like, most people aren't business owners. Most people aren't like warriors or political leaders, and most people aren't spiritual guides. The vast majority of people are employed. And
workers.
Yeah, workers. And so those are called Shudras. Now, so the idea is this, that each one of these roles has strengths and weaknesses. Now you were saying there appears to be a hierarchy, and in one sense there is, and in one sense there's not. Okay, like in one sense there is on the material level, but on the spiritual level there's not, and both of those parts of the equation have to be understood. But first, let's just say, okay, you created a hierarchy here, right? You have these Brahmanas on the top, and they walk around and people are supposed to listen to what they say and show them like extra respect, right? So doesn't everyone just want to be that? Well, the fact is, no, not everybody wants to be that because they live such a disciplined and simple life. Most people don't want that life.
Yeah.
Right?
To be the Brahmanas, they have to voluntarily accept the position of poverty to really truly lead, because they can't be purchased. We want someone who's objective. We want someone who can't be bought. We want someone who we can go to for good advice, and we feel like they have no motive. They have no agenda. They're not just. And so, to the degree they're simple, they're trustable, and they get to serve that role of ministers, of advice givers, of judges, of lawyers, of teachers. And it becomes very natural that's what they assume that role, and then they voluntarily give it up so they can continue with integrity in that role. So they are number one, but they don't have the accoutrements of like being number one in America, right? If you want to have all the stuff, then you're number two. That's
Right.
the Kshatriya.
At best, right? Yeah. Yes. Who wants to, in other words, I would like to be that number one, but I don't get a paycheck, and I can't like drink alcohol or smoke, or I can't, it becomes so limited. I got to wake up really early every morning, and I got to have something to say. Like I got to have something like dynamic, and I need to study all the time. Nobody's going to take me seriously if I can't put out, what a Brahmin is supposed to put out. And so, in theory, it's like it would seem to be like, oh, I want the number one position, but actually most people don't want that position. They wouldn't be happy trying to be in that position. Okay, and then then you have the warrior. Okay, well they're getting tons of respect too, right? They can tax people, right? But are you ready to go to battle and put your life on the line?
Yeah, they've vast amounts of wealth, but they also have got a lot of work to do, like tons of responsibilities.
Yeah.
For the maintenance of an entire kingdom. And of course, people want to take them down hard. And and you got to go to war. You don't just like, okay, we're going to declare war on this rogue nation, and I'm going to sit back and send all these teenagers to fight. You got to be on the battlefield ready to fight. Yeah. That was part of being a king and a leader.
And protect, and more or less it's the police department as well, right? Like any criminal, you got to deal with them. It's like in those films, like in those old cowboy movies where like they put the badge on someone, It's like, yeah, they got a lot of power, but like they got a lot of responsibility too, and not many people want that responsibility. But for the people that it is their name, there are some people that do want that responsibility. It's their psychology, right?
It's sort of like what we're doing. We're just a bunch of, look at all of us. We're a mess. I'll speak for myself. I'm a mess here, but I'm trying to educate myself in Dharma. So out of all of us, there's maybe a few of us who would be sort of like in the UFC, the ultimate fighting, a mixed martial artist. Those guys are like, yeah, let's fight somebody. Let's work out. Let's pump iron. I collect shotguns, or I collect different guns. I got a Glock in my cabinet. I got a shotgun under my bed, whatever. There's people who are into warfare. Those people, that's part of them. They're not going to get rid of that from their psychology. They are like protector type of people. But unless that desire to fight is woven in with Dharma, then they just become criminals themselves, or they just become led by their ego. So that ego is there in a fighter, in a warrior, in a martial artist. Yeah. But it's guided by the Brahmanas, because the Brahmanas are giving Brahman realization about God, realization about divinity, realization about society, ethics, appropriate behavior. And so therefore there's a natural submission to the Brahmanas or the priests. And the kings, of course, even in the Western world, they would always have ministers or people they can go to for advice. What should we do? We don't, what do you think about this? And they were just servants of the king, but they were actually the leaders.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just give one example with the warrior, with this psychology, which is fearless and very dynamic, but also a little hot-headed, a little proud, right? It needs that's their strength. The strength is like their fearlessness and their physical power, their ability, their military arts and so on. Their weakness is their pride, and also the tendency to violence, right? It's very destructive.
Mm.
We all probably know people that are like that like to fight and that create problems in society.
We know a
today.
few more than most people know.
Maybe we do.
We know a few more.
And so the that's the weakness. So how do you counter that weakness? You can't just, and this is what screws up a lot. I think in modern nowadays we might just say make that kid who's showing those propensities just like repress them, right? Just like try to bury it somehow.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't work, and it gets warped in different ways. But what the yogic, Vedic teachings are saying is we recognize that psychology, and that's okay. It's got strength. It's got weaknesses. Let's give that person a code. Give them some ethics to live by, that they can feel good about, and that can help society. So to counter that weakness of pride and tendency to violence, as you were saying, the code was that they were submissive to the wise people, right? They before they would engage in battle, before they would fight, before they would hear from the wise person who's tempering all that, right? This isn't necessary right now.
You see that in the nature of children. My 7-year-old, he's the craziest of the entire bunch. He came out of the womb like ready to fight, and you can't like get that out of his system.
I think he has something called the daily punch. What is it called?
Yeah, I have the. He comes up to me, goes, "Time for your daily punch," and just like punches me in the arm.
Not
as hard
just
as
you. He
can.
punches it. He does that with all
punches
kinds
everybody.
Of yeah.
But he's just like, I'm serious. Like he just wants to fight all the time. The other kids were not like that, and that I'm not trying to squash it. I'm going to train him. He's going to be. I mean, we were fighting last night. We just train him how to box, train him how to kick.
You create some barriers to that, right? You create some
parameters,
some parameters,
parameters, and that's why you get an astrological chart done for your kids, because you see what their proclivity is, and you sort of encourage them towards that proclivity, but in a divine way.
Yeah,
and that's where what we're doing comes in. Is you get whatever you get, but you hook it towards divinity and your own liberation. And therefore they channel all these things in a healthy way. That's the theory, at least.
That's how it's supposed to work, right? That you channel all that, and through this, the everyone's better qualities are cultured and their lower qualities are countered. For instance, again, the business person, right? The person that's good at making money, that's a great talent, that's a great skill, but often it's accompanied by a sense of greed. Right. So then the duties are built into that for that psychology. This person has particular responsibility to be charitable, right? And in this way they counter the greed. So again, all of these four, they have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. The idea was it's helpful to recognize our own strengths and weaknesses and to counter them through the dharma, through the duties that we adopt in life. And in this way, all of society is serving one another. Now, certainly this gets warped, as almost any good thing gets warped. But what we've been speaking about so far is recognizing this on the material level. But what about on the spiritual level? And I just want to read a bit from the commentary that Prabhupada wrote to the text 33, where the Shudras were described. You could say the workers, the laborers. And he writes, "It is clearly said here that the principle of service was generated from the legs of the Lord for the sake of perfecting the Dharma process. But this transcendental service is different from the idea of service in the material world. In the material world, no one wants to be a servant. Everyone wants to become a master, because false mastership. Here's a statement for you. Ready, Raghu?
Yeah.
Because false mastership is the basic disease of the conditioned soul."
Ooh, I like it.
All right. False mastership.
False mastership is the basic disease of the conditioned soul. I'm making that into a t-shirt.
Okay, a bright yellow one?
Listen, this big bird thing is really got me angry. It is really yellow, man. Why did they make it so yellow?
I don't know. The conditioned soul in the material world.
In case you're like riding your bicycle, you don't want cars to hit you, wear the Miss Hall sweatshirt.
Is that what that is? Is that what that's for? Maybe you misunderstood that was like for safety.
In the rain.
Yeah. The conditioned soul in the material world wants to lord it over others. Illusioned by the external energy of the Lord, they are forced to become the servant of the material world. Right? We think that we're lording it over others. Ultimately, we're becoming servants of the material world. That is the real position of the conditioned soul. The last snare of illusory external energy is the conception of becoming one with the Lord. Right? Okay, if I've tried lording it over others and it doesn't work, maybe I'm just the one Lord and there's nothing else. And due to this conception, the illusion soul remains in the bondage of material energy, falsely thinking himself a liberated soul and, quote, as good as Narayana, unquote.
Mm.
It is actually better to be a Shudra than to be a Brahmana and not develop the service attitude. Okay, this is the point, right here. Because that attitude alone satisfies the Lord. We were speaking about this when we spoke to Ravinol about his film the other day, right? And we shared that story about the Brahmanas who were so expert in their ritual and so learned in philosophy, right? And so well trained in Vedic lifestyle, but they hadn't developed the service attitude, right? So we're hearing about that here. It doesn't matter what one of these four are if one develops the actual service attitude. So it is actually better to be a Shudra than to be a Brahmana and not develop the service attitude, because that attitude alone satisfies the Lord. Every living being, even if he be a Brahmana by qualification, must take to the transcendental service of the Lord. Now, you asked the question, who are we and why are we here, right?
Yes.
From the beginning. And so what this
All the
commentary
hardcore bhaktas, or their ears are perking up because it's a famous hardcore song.
No, but actually it's different, right? It's almost the same, right? Because
Who are you? Who are you? Why you?
Who are you and why am I here?
Who are you? Why am I here? Yes.
Right.
Who are you? Why am I here?
that was that was when hardcore was just getting pushed to the limit with that band, right?
It's
Void
just falling apart,
Yeah, like
screaming at you.
You push it so far, like it's right on the verge of falling apart.
Yeah, that was the good old days.
Okay, so who am I and why am I here? It seems like right now Raghunath is like a yoga teacher, ex-hardcore singer in a very bright yellow outfit. What?
So I'm going to take this on you. Check this out, man. You are a teacher, right? You're a
Okay.
teacher. And if you weren't doing this, if you never got touched by the transcendental bodhisattvas who have made you what you are today, you'd probably be teaching like in a New York City high school mathematics. Okay, everybody, here's the syllabus.
Kids.
Everybody sit down. Can you imagine Kastuba doing that, right?
I don't know, maybe.
It's one of those things. That's what you naturally do. But because you've been blessed by the bhakti bodhisattvas who've opened your third eye, now you're doing this. But it's your nature to teach. But it's the mercy of those teachers, and it's the mercy of the Bhagavatam and the sacred literature that somehow like penetrated you. And now it's taken that same teaching, and now you're doing something.
Right.
Now you're sort of assisting the liberation of the gamers.
Well, all of this is meant to lead to bhakti, and in my particular role, it's like it's really tightly connected to bhakti because it's Bhagavatam that I'm teaching and so on. But let's say that someone was a teacher in a New York City high school, right? That by nature they have this Brahminical inclination to study, to contemplate, to share, and teach. That's their nature, and so the idea would be that ideally that person would be willing to live simply, right? Relatively simply. And ideally the rest of society would appreciate what they do and support them. There's trouble with all that in our society, right? Yeah. And but they would see their role of teaching as like there's something important that I have to teach that needs to be shared, but all of this I do as a service to God, right? Like whatever I'm contributing as a servant of God, sharing what I've got, and I would cultivate that attitude of service through that. Like, you get a lot of intellectuals now, like say a lot of professors. Sometimes these professors are just the darkest people, aren't they? Like just the most arrogant, just sometimes, right?
Well,
like,
it's the Parmananda asked this question: what is the downside, the weaknesses of the Brahmanas? Yeah, you get in the position of like you're the leader, you're the teacher, and you're arrogant.
We saw that in that story with the Brahmanas and their wives.
Right? Yeah. You have a little bit of insight. You know the technique, but you never learn the humility that comes with it.
therefore Prabhupada started, this paragraph by saying it's actually better to be a Shudra than to be a Brahmana and not develop the service attitude, right? So the idea is that all four, we've got this Varna ashram system, that's this idea of human psychology and this prescription of responsibilities that go with it, has certainly been corrupted. And where it got corrupted, especially, is where people said it's all by birth, right? Because it's really the qualities that you're meant to be manifesting, not by birth. So people who didn't have the qualities of, say, a Brahmana would kind of demand the respect that a Brahmana has, and then begin to apply all these principles with cruelty rather than with compassion. People that really understood how this is meant to work would recognize that whether one is Brahmana, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Shudra, what we're really looking for is the attitude of service, how they take their own psychology and their own dharma, their own responsibilities in life, and how they cultivate an attitude of service through it, and that's right. So again, better to be a Shudra that really understands, who am I? Ultimately, I'm a servant by nature, and therefore you get like to the Dvijamani, the jewel amongst all the Brahmanas, was Sri Chaitanya, right? And his important statement, this verse that he says, that's like so important and cuts through all of this.
Which makes no sense if you're new to this stuff. But as you get older into this practice, you're like, this is the highest thing. If you just walk in the door and someone says, I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the little cowherd girls of Vrindavan.
The lover of the cowherd girls.
The lover cowherd.
Yeah, but this famous verse that I'm not a, and this is a verse that people meditate on before they do their meditation, right? Because like for the time being, for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to do my ritual and my meditation, and I want to let go of all my material designations. So this prayer, I'm not a Brahmana, I'm not a Kshatriya, I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Shudra. Who am I? Gopi Partha Kamalayor, Dasa Anudasa. I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of God. That's my true eternal identity. I'm playing around in the video game. I got my different avatars. I switch from one after another, after another, after another. I identify with each one as I go through life, lost, in this cycle. But really what I'm meant to do through my dharma in this world, even if I do have a temporary role to play as a mother, a father, a business person, whatever it might be, let me see that in terms of service. Let me cultivate the mood of service, because the perhaps counterintuitive truth is that deeper meaning and happiness in life comes from service, because that's my nature. And when that service is ultimately connected, even if it's connected to serving the servant of the servant of the servant of God, through that my true nature, my true happiness, my true bliss arises. And with that,
We're out of time
to start.
Wow.
This.
Well, thanks everybody. I got some good takeaways for you.
What are the takeaways today?
My takeaway is choose Krishna, not Krishna's army.
Right.
Who am I? Why am I here? I'm
That's
a
not a takeaway, that's a
servant of
question.
the servant.
Okay.
Who am I? Why am I here? That's a bit. Well, it's an important question we should keep in our lives.
Yeah.
I'm a
Good,
servant
good.
of the servant, and
Yeah.
zombies are real.
No.
So, well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
No,
I don't even know that was a
reading whole thing, I
zombie
getting
that
the
was being
creeps.
exactly described there. Was that actually a zombie?
Well, no, they say they enter into corpses.
Okay. I
Let's
guess
leave
you'd
on a
call that
high.
zombie.
Let's leave on a high. This
Okay.
stuff is spooky.
That's what I'm telling you. Why'd you go there?
Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks to Nityananda for sharing that little piece of metaphysical demonic wisdom. And thanks for everybody for being part of our morning group. This is wonderful. Tonight is Sweet Baby Krishna. If you're a Patreon member, join us. Join our secret society. You go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. There'll be a link to get onto our Sweet Baby Krishna class tonight. Tell stories about Krishna. We chant some mantras. It's fun. It's a great way to wind down the evening. Mara's leaving tomorrow. Are you doing the show tomorrow, Mara?
I'll be on the show tomorrow. Then I'm
On
leaving.
the show. Okay. It's a going away party for Mara tomorrow. And what's happening today, Mara? Anything interesting?
There's Bhakti Recovery Group meeting, the men's meeting at 11 a.m. today.
And tonight.
Sweet Baby
Isn't it
Krishna.
tonight? Sweet Baby Krishna tonight.
He doesn't listen to me, does he?
Oh, me?
Yes, that's okay. This is his chance to look at
Oh, you
message boards. He's very focused the entire class.
I can't
I'm, like,
hear
all
anything
over
right now because I got this thing in my ear.
Oh,
I can
that's-
barely
that's
hear
what's
you.
going
That's
on.
the
That's
problem.
what's going on.
Yeah.
It's dance time, people.